This presentation is to examine the attitude toward federal spending on Social Security in the U.S. My research question: do Americans think positively toward increased federal spending on Social Security? My analytical approach is use ANES2012 Data, combine related indicators to form an index for thru, select 3 indicators as IVs, and formulate 3 hypotheses. Choose 2 indicators as control variables. Perform various tests through web stats. The rationale behind my research question: from the academic literature, we are all aware of the unsustainable federal debt in the U.S. To rectify the situation requires changes in policies. Either federal spending on Social Security has to be cut, or taxes have to be increased. And other factor is the ambivalence about the role of the government. People do not trust the government. They tend to have decreased support for social welfare. As regards my analytical approach, the ANES2012 dataset is used because it provides comprehensive and weighted public opinion data. Reliability analysis is done for the computer index, as it measures a concept more effectively than any single indicator. Univariate summary statistics help determine the suitability of the index as thru. Correlation analysis is performed to measure the strength of relationship between the thru and 3 IVs. Multimodal regression analysis is performed to examine the impact of adding control variables. The results of the reliability analysis is shown here. The alpha is 0.6263, which is greater than the 0.6 threshold. The frequency distribution of the raw index is presented here. The mean is slightly less than median, meaning respondents are more likely to think positively toward increased spending. The scale is less than 1, and kurtosis is flat, meaning the variable should be useful for analysis. The first hypothesis is that if respondents trust the government, they are more likely to support increased federal spending on Social Security. In the academic literature, Ubix shows that trust in government does affect political attitudes. The second hypothesis is that of respondents, like labor unions, they are more likely to support increased federal spending on Social Security. In the academic literature, Pearce shows that despite decline in union density, workers still think that collective advocacy is a good thing. The third hypothesis is that if respondents like people on welfare, they are more likely to support increased spending on Social Security. In the academic literature, Contini and Ricciardi describe welfare stigma as the negative feeling of shame and disrespect from being on welfare, but there appears to be less stigma where Social Security benefits are more generous. Gender and party identification indicators are used as control variables and are recoded as dummy variables. The hypothesis is that females are more likely to support increased spending, whereas respondents who are identified as Republican tend not to support increased spending. The correlation matrix shows the sign of the coefficients as positive, meaning respondents are supportive of increased spending. These coefficients are statistically significant. On the left of the multimodal regression table, Model 1 is the original regression table before control variables. On the right is Model 2 incorporating the control variables. This is a graphical presentation of the lesson models. Both IV1 and IV2 have moderately strong relationship, as the magnitude of association value is between 0.2 and 0.25. IV3 has a weak relationship, but minimally acceptable for the value of 0.19. All three hypotheses are proven to be correct, with p smaller than 0.001, meaning the relationships are statistically significant. Adjusted R-square indicates explained variance of approximately 7.9%. There is no issue of multicollinearity as all tolerance values are over 0.2 threshold. With the control variables, hypotheses 4 and 5 are also proven to be correct. The relationships are statistically significant, and there is no issue of multicollinearity. Adjusted R-square indicates explained variance of approximately 8.9%. The partial relationship suggests a case of specification when controlling the party identification variable as Republican using the rule of thirds. The original relationship has changed more than one-third of its original value, and the relationship is weaker. Using breakers to compare the two models, IVs in Model 2 are less than Model 1 because of the control variables. To sum it up, most Americans tend to support increased federal spending on Social Security. Females tend to support increased spending, but they are not as strong as expected. Republicans tend not to support increased spending as expected, reaffirming their political ideology for a smaller government. Future research would be to do a comparative study on public attitude towards social spending in Canada and the US.